President Biden been under serious pressure to do something about high energy costs?
Yeah, the optics of high gas prices really tough in this country. I mean, even as one of the reasons why gas prices are high is because we've come out of the near standstill of the COVID shutdowns last year. Remember when oil prices briefly went negative, right? Because you had to pay someone to take your oil off your hands. And now this year, the opposite. You don't have enough supply to meet roaring demand in the U.S. and around the world. And you've got these supply chain hiccups. You have OPEC Plus, a powerful cartel that isn't raising its production targets as much as oil consuming nations would like. So you've got a little bit of petropolitics happening here as well. In the U.S., though, this is a president and a White House that knows keenly that the American people do not like to pay $15 more for a gallon of gas, a tank full of gas, rather, this year than last year. And so that just trajectory, that daily and weekly reminder of higher prices is something that's hurting confidence in this country, even when we know the U.S. GDP is back to pre-pandemic levels, jobs are starting to come in. Yet the gas price thing is a real optics problem for this White House. So how they handle it is critical.
Oh, there's a smorgasbord of information in there, and it's tough to choose what to do. I love the idea of petropolitics. It's complicated. If you're a nation, at the very least, trying to target either supply or targeting prices, you're asking for all sorts of trouble based on what we've seen in terms of history trying to achieve this. But I guess I would tie some of the stories together here. The idea of JP Morgan saying some of the supply chain kinks, perhaps for Apple at least, are coming out here. Some of the data is suggesting that maybe we've seen the peak, perhaps, even in energy prices. And I just wonder whether what we're seeing here in terms of a strategic oil release comes at a time when we're already on the downward trend for many of these issues, or an improving trend, let's call it that.
And that would be some good luck for the Biden administration, wouldn't it? Because they have for weeks, we've been talking to these other players. We know China, South Korea, and the UK and India and Japan, who they say will have coordinated releases with them. Still waiting to see the details from each of those countries, though. But the fact that it is a coordinated SPR release is important. It shows that they've got some other folks on board here. It makes it a little bit more bang for your buck. But we've also been hearing from people inside the White House that they've been watching sort of the through traffic from ports and rails and trucks, and they're starting to see that mess kind of work itself out. We know that some of the big retailers have just bypassed the traditional system themselves and have bought their own container ships and trucking routes and the like, so they can make sure that there are products on the store shelves. So it might be that the worst of that supply chain mess is behind us, and maybe the peak is in for oil for the year. Then you put this political effort by the international political efforts, spearheaded by the White House on top of things. Maybe they'll get a little bit of credit for trying to do more on inflation. Because there was a time in the past few weeks when there were those who were, especially people who are opponents of this administration, who are trying to say that the White House was tone deaf on the daily and weekly suffering of American families in terms of inflation. So this is a maybe symbolic, but certainly important move here.